2015 to order. Would you all please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda this evening is approval of the minutes of the May 11th, 2015 regular meeting. Minutes were emailed to all board members. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And board members, can I just remind you that you need to hit the buttons on your microphone to be heard? Thank you. The next item on the agenda, which is about to become my personal favorite, written communications received by board members. I have a pile. They have to be read. First one is dated May 18th, 2015. Mayor Cocaine, Chairperson Era Simowitz. As the city nears decision-making time for Depot Square and Renaissance, I do have some questions and comments. While all may not apply to BDDC, I would like answers, and for these questions, comments to be submitted as part of the BDDC meeting. I would ask that all BDDC members get copies of this. I'm writing to both of you as some questions may apply to the BDDC, some may apply to the city, and some may apply to both. Hopefully I will get replies. Has the purchase price been agreed to? If so, what is it, phase one or all phases? Besides the 7.5 mil, has anyone calculated how much else this will cost the city, infrastructure, etc.? Is the 3.9 mil for commercial included in the 7.5? Where will the city get the money? What is the total required of the city, including all costs such as city services, improvements? Is there a budget type analysis available? As far as the city managing operating the retail commercial, when would that start? Who will be responsible for recruiting tenants? What is the time frame for units to be full in order to provide the stated return? Who owns the unit? Who is responsible for the overhead and maintenance and any liability? Renaissance has suggested that another corporation, BDDC is a corporation, be formed. Will that further dilute the city's control? Who would select the corporation members? Who will fund this corporation for attorneys, executive director, and any other expenses? Who would fund this until rent income became available? Would this corporation exist for the full time until the city is paid off? Would the corporation have anything to say about the agreement between Renaissance and the city? What liability, if any, would the city have under this arrangement as suggested by the developer? Has Renaissance had this type of arrangement on any other of their projects? If so, how has it worked out? Will there be a time frame for completion for phase one with penalties if schedule is not met? Needless to say, there may be more questions as the picture gets filled in or doesn't. William T. Storts, 31 Oxbow Drive, Bristol, Connecticut. May 18, 2015. To whom it may concern. My fiance and I both grew up in Bristol, moved away to further our educations, and then moved back to Bristol to settle down and start our careers. Things haven't gone exactly as planned with the job market in Bristol, and the state is declining every day, it seems. We get by, but are disheartened by what our city, especially downtown, has turned into. No jobs, no new industry, little entertainment, and limited options for dining and drinking. We have always had a dream of opening our own business, and we realized that we aspire to own our own restaurant. We began the process and started looking into spaces in downtown Bristol as we knew we wanted to be in the epicenter of Bristol, especially with the exciting things happening with Bristol Rising. We looked into many of the vacant spaces in the downtown area and were less than thrilled by any of those available. We quickly realized we wanted to be part of the new retail potentially being built in downtown. We worked with Renaissance and sent in our letter of interest and joined a list of almost 20 other culinary and mixed retail hopefuls. We were surprised and happy to have competition for the retail being built. It's exciting to see that others are ready and eager to start up in downtown Bristol. We are ready to invest in our town. Other new businesses are ready to invest, but we are extremely saddened to see our town might not be ready or willing to invest in itself. Sincerely, Hannah Hintz and David Wynn. I apologize for anyone whose name I mutilate. May 18, 2015, to whom it may concern. Now is Bristol's time to grow and thrive, and not just hang on to try to stay alive. Born and raised in Bristol, I didn't think I'd still be living here and enjoying the city in my early 30s. Growing up, the comments were on the negative side about our city, and none of my friends were excited about staying. There is a wonderful group of people in our community who I've had the pleasure of meeting, befriending, and working with over the past few years. These amazing people are our city's doers and believers, but we need help and support from many more to make our downtown revitalization a reality. Renaissance Downtowns has always been transparent about working with the city to find financing options that work for everyone. Let's keep moving together toward this common goal. If the downtown revitalization doesn't come to fruition, I will consider moving myself, my goals, and business ideas to another community that understands and has common goals of support and growth. I recently experienced amazing culture and sense of community while visiting Fort Collins, Colorado. Small businesses are thriving, and there is respect and gratitude walking through the air, attracting good people from all around. Bristol can build a wonderful community like this, too. We are a beautiful city with so much potential. Let's take the leap. Best, Sarah Radel. To whom it may concern. May 18th, 2015, to whom it may concern. Bristol needs to attract a vibrant young new group of residents and visitors to enliven the city. A development like Depot Square can help bring the contemporary restaurants, nightlife, shopping, and living space that young professionals gravitate to. Bristol is an ideal location for these young professionals. Its close proximity to Hartford and Waterbury makes it a great home for those looking to commute in and out of the cities. As the home of ESPN, Bristol attracts the best and brightest in the industry. Unfortunately, many of the company's employees don't live in the city. If Bristol can create a space that will entice young professionals, it has a better chance of keeping them in the city as their careers and families grow. A project like Depot Square can capitalize on young professionals' desire for a living space that is within walking distance from shops, restaurants, bars, and other nightlife, and other services. It will help draw an energetic new generation to the city and perhaps encourage those who have left to return home. The businesses within Depot Square will provide employment for many new residents as well. Whether a person is in his first job or she is well established and looking for the modern lifestyle to match her up-and-coming career, Depot Square will provide the opportunity for young professionals to grow and develop in an ideal setting. In addition to drawing permanent residents, a walkable downtown area will increase tourism to the area. Bristol can become a destination for out-of-towners looking for a day trip or an evening out in the town. The restaurants, bars, and other nightlife will draw visitors looking to try a new place to eat, an interesting cocktail, or locally brewed beers. Boutique clothing, confectionery, and consumer goods stores become an attraction on their own. Items that can't be purchased at a department store can be found in small shops that thrive in walkable downtown areas. What may start out as a trip to get coffee with a friend might lead to a stop into the new retail establishment next door and perhaps culminates in dinner at the acclaimed bistro on the next block and drinks at an upscale bar. West Hartford has two locations that experience this effect, West Hartford Center and Blueback Square. These easily accessible, walkable downtown areas provide a full day's worth of entertainment for visitors and draw them back time and time again. For the residents of Blueback Square and those in the area surrounding West Hartford Center, the two locations provide quick access to both everyday necessities and occasional indulgences. The key to revitalizing Bristol is to engage a new generation of young, up-and-coming professionals. Creating a space where they will thrive and want to live is the first important step. Keeping them engaged and connected to the community will encourage these young professionals to put down roots, start their families, and get back to their city. Take the first step towards revitalizing Bristol, support the Depot Square project, and help attract a new generation of Bristolites. Sincerely, Samantha Maygrave. May 18th, 2015, to whom it may concern. I moved back to Bristol in late 2012 to begin my career after graduating college, and it's clear to me that we need a place for young business professionals like myself to live and socialize. Since moving back to Connecticut, I lived in Newington and currently Collinsville because I couldn't find any housing in my price range that I felt comfortable living in. Living in my parents' house in Bristol was no longer an option and continues to be less of an option as I get established on my own 2 feet. I would love to put roots down in Bristol, but not without seeing some changes first. I would love a location in our town where I can shop, eat, drink, and really experience what Bristol is capable of offering. It would be incredible to have my friends from college and work colleagues come visit and be able to go out in Bristol rather than trekking to Southington or West Hartford. I want to proudly show off what my city has to offer. Our city could be so much more than it is right now if we just went for it. I have heard that people are really anxious about safety downtown, with the West End and Summer Street areas being seen as hotbeds for crime. If we develop the downtown area, the foot traffic will increase exponentially, and while foot traffic isn't going to fix any crime problems entirely, it will still undoubtedly make the area safer, and over time it will improve these areas. Nothing like this takes a day and a night. I just can't express how desperately I would love to sit outside in a beautiful piazza surrounded by people enjoying our city, a city that we finally decided to allow ourselves to invest in. I can do that in a number of other towns, but would love to see more opportunity to support businesses in my own hometown. I am still a taxpayer of Bristol despite renting in Collinsville currently, and I am prepared to invest. I hope you are too. Thank you, Matt Willett. May 18, 2015, to whom it may concern. I am excited about the proposal to develop downtown Bristol. The plan offers the combination of retail and affluent residents and has the potential to dramatically upgrade our community. This plan allows the city to improve the local economy, support new business, and attract new residents. In addition, the city will be paid back with interest. The benefit from the City of Bristol making an investment in the downtown project is clear. As a business owner, taxpayer, and property owner, I agree. Support the endorse it. Sincerely, Debbie Lombardi, President and Founder of Barter Business Unlimited. May 14, 2015, to whom it may concern. It is my pleasure to write a letter in support of Renaissance Downtown's financing, leasing, and development plan to build a mixed-use building with 100 luxury residences along with retail space that would be located on the corner of Riverside and Main Street in Bristol. I am a lifelong resident in town with deep-held family community ties. I have chosen to raise my family in town along with opening and operating a successful business in addition to purchasing and maintaining multiple investment properties. I am committed to the prosperity of this community and am proud to call it my home. I support this plan because the City of Bristol not only will be given back the investment, but my business and personal life will also be positively impacted by the continued growth of our town. We have been waiting for close to a decade for development, and my tax dollars spent on the project thus far have done little more than create a giant parking lot. This plan recoups the $10+ million spent and adds value to the current residents and businesses along with the attraction of a new tax base. The City of Bristol's goal should be to improve the local economy, support new business, and attract new residents. This proposal does this and gives the city taxpayers back the investment with interest. As a business owner, taxpayer, and homeowner, I know I will benefit from the city's investment in our downtown. In conclusion, I fully support the efforts of Renaissance Downtown's financing, leasing, and development plan. Sincerely, Heather Beveridge, 83 Jewel Street, Bristol, Connecticut. To whom it may concern, this one is undated. This past week, we created a form for Bristol residents to submit a statement of support for the Depot Square project and/or a vote of yes, I support the Depot Square project, and yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. We provided details about the new financial proposal we recently submitted, as well as a link to the full financial proposal for those interested in reviewing it. In total, we received 45 statements of support and votes of yes. We support the Depot Square project, and we want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. The form is still live online and can be viewed at the following web address, which I am not going to read. It's https://google.com/ and then it has a long string of characters, which we will make available, and I'm sure Brian can make it available on his website as well if you want to click the link. Sincerely, Renaissance Downtown, Bristol, Connecticut. Statements of support for Renaissance Downtown's Depot Square project submission for the BDUC Monday, May 18, 2015. There's a list of names, email addresses, and phone numbers along with the statements of support. I'm not going to read email addresses and phone numbers. I'll just read names and the statements. Number 1, Ray Palagi. I want to bring Bristol back. I've seen the population shrink since I moved here in 2003, and I want it to grow again like towns such as Southington, which are growing because they develop their town and make it business friendly. We need this. Number 2, Susan. I've been keeping my eye on the progress. I have faith that this is exactly what Bristol needs to be revived. If you build it, they will come. Number 3, Katie Chamberlain. My husband and I grew up in Bristol, but there's nothing keeping us here anymore. We are both 27 years old, and being able to go out and enjoy ourselves is something that's very important to us. If we go out to eat, we end up out of town. If we need to go shopping, we go out of town. Most of our friends have moved away in the last few years as well because of what I hear is the biggest complaint about Bristol from those in my age group. There's nothing to do here. I support plans to place a shopping residential space downtown so that not only would we have something fun to do nearby, but also so that we can support businesses in our own city. Number 4, Lindsay D. I do not want more box stores in Bristol, and Renaissance plan does not include another strip mall full of Targets, CVS's, and Walmarts. We need good, sustainable business that will keep local dollars in town rather than always in neighboring towns. Number 5, Victor Lugo. The positive economic lifestyle and sustainability of this project will change everything for our family, our 20 employees that work in our small business in downtown Bristol, and improve the investment we've made in this community. The community will also experience the enhanced quality of life and economic improvement. Number 6, Alan Marco. It is the first step toward having the kind of downtown that will make us proud to say we are from Bristol. A core of middle-income young professionals living there will encourage further development and investment. Number 7, Betty Talmadge. It will bring renewed vibrancy to downtown Bristol. Number 8, Dave Talmadge. I believe that the project will increase Bristol's tax base and restore the downtown area to once again become the center of the city. Number 9, Allison Hennessy. I know it will make Bristol a better place to live, work, and visit. Number 10, Tyler Gibson. We have spent $40 million on Route 72 extension to nowhere. Let's revitalize downtown to make Bristol a better place. Number 11, Kevin Safone. As a young professional living in Bristol, I recognize the significant need for more vibrant living communities and walkable space enriched with small business and local culture. I've seen many people my age move out of Bristol due to the fact that the community does not keep them engaged, and there just frankly is not enough to do in town. This project would, without a doubt, transform the way young people see Bristol, and they'd gravitate towards living here. Number 12, David Bokar. As a born and raised Bristol resident, I always wish for something more for the city. Sure, we have lake compounds, but that's practically a different city in itself. I recently moved out of Bristol, but still visit the city often, as most of my family and friends live here. Our city has been crying out for something new, and the Depot Square project is just that. The empty lot that has existed downtown has been a huge eyesore and shameful representation of the city. Simply put, something needs to be done, and this is exactly the right plan. Number 13, Robin. I would love to see some nice businesses in Bristol, and please no more dollar stores. Number 14, Deborah Stesiak. I believe that the Depot Square project will help to revitalize the town and produce more revenue for local business. I live in Bristol, and I support projects that work to bring Bristol back to the way it was many years ago, a safe and walkable town. Number 15, Mike Euclid. As a lifelong Bristol native, I support any project that will improve our downtown area. Number 16, Morgan Flippinger-Ergo. As a lifelong resident of Bristol and Burlington, I am so tired of having to travel 20 to 30 minutes to other towns to buy a nice pair of women's shoes or a decent dress. We would love to walk downtown, we live on Burlington Ave, to shop, eat, and drink, take in a movie or concert. To be honest, we will be leaving Bristol if something like this does not happen. There's not enough to keep our young families here. We have friends that live all over the state of Connecticut, and we are always leaving Bristol to see them because we cannot get people to come and visit us here. It is too far, and then we have to drive out of town again to entertain people. We love Barley and Vine, Buono, Monterey Mexican Restaurant, the Clock and Watch Museum, and everything else that the city has to offer. Let's give it an anchor. I cannot make the meeting. I have to work, but would speak if I could. Number 17, Linda Howard. This project is good for all of Bristol, citizens and businesses as well. Number 18, Josh Krampens. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. Number 19, Terry Lugo. My husband Victor and I have lived in downtown Bristol for 10 years when we bought a home on Summer Street. We also invested in opening our business, Barley Vine Gastropub, which is directly across from the development site. It is so important for the Bristol community to invest in themselves in order to economically develop and grow as a community. Let's believe in ourselves as a community. We hear so many of our customers who want to see a vibrant, walkable downtown, and so many that would like to have a nice apartment here instead of having to move to surrounding towns. It is so important to move forward with this. If we don't, we'll fall back and continue to lose population and continue to lose businesses. A vibrant downtown speaks volumes for our community. Number 20, David Fortier. It is a plan that includes a vision of Bristol that reflects what Bristol is in its heart and soul, a place where people come first and everything good follows. Number 21, Karen Stevens. It is time that we move this city forward. There are no perfect solutions, but if we as a community of people are not willing to take a chance and invest in ourselves, how can we possibly expect anyone else to? Now is the time. What is the alternative? To do nothing? To start all over again? I don't see those as better options. 22, Charles Gray. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. Rita Joy. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. Number 24, Nicolette Therial. Bristol needs a community space rather than a string of strip malls on Route 6. Number 25, Maureen Paradis. Bristol needs new life downtown. I'm tired of looking at a big open space that has so much potential. Let's move forward with this in a way that doesn't cost the taxpayers more money. 26, Jessica Pike. It's the catalyst to downtown Bristol turning around. It will be the foundation to drawing the residents we want, the vitality we need, and the growth we're aspiring for. On a semi-related note, I support the project because I don't want to stay in a town that allows its heart to die. This project is bigger than the investment the city has to provide because it's about the last chance we have before you sentence a community to hopelessness. We spend money on fields, on historic icons like the Boulevard. It's time to put money towards a revitalized center. Number 27, Anne Willette. Without it, we have nothing, and I will be forced to find another place to call home. With it, I can see myself being happy here for decades to come. Number 28, Sarah Radel. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. Number 29, Jane Radel. Bristol needs this. Number 30, Carmelo Longo. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. 31, Jocelyn Milliman. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. 32, Molly Nelson. I live on Main Street in Bristol and walk past the empty lot every day. I frequently try to support the small businesses in the area, Barley Vine, Tea Salon, Firefly Howl Brewing, Parkside Cafe. I wish there were more places to go and things to do in the area and envision a future where this neighborhood is thriving after the renovation of Depot Square. Please help make this happen. 33, Brittany Barney. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. 34, Alana Rubenstein. I moved to Main Street right near the library 2 years ago and just signed my lease for my 3rd year. I would love for an area downtown where we could walk to. I walk to Barley Vine, but that's about it. I would love to have a more community feel and not a giant empty parking lot. 35, Jordan Sear. As a 20-something living in Bristol, I'd like to spend more time and in turn money in a developed downtown. 36, Lisa Limeburner. I am a lifelong resident of Bristol. I love my town and support the Depot Square project because I believe in our community. That parcel of land is at the heart of our town. It's our center. Are we truly going to let it stay barren and desolate? If the City Council doesn't support our community spirit, what do they expect will happen to the resident spirit? This is a turning point for the city, especially the West End. The Depot Square project is this community's lifeline. 37, Brian Brown. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. 38, Shab Eve. I've been rooting for this project to get started from day one. Bristol needs a viable, revenue-producing downtown. However, I've pretty much given up that it will ever happen in spite of all the efforts and support of your organization. Other places seem to manage, but apparently not Bristol. 39, Andrea Adams. What if we don't invest in ourselves? What happens then? So many years have already gone by and still not progress has been made. We have an opportunity to change the face of Bristol and attract businesses and people to live here, all contributing to the tax base. If we don't have the courage and vision to move forward, we will be left behind and our tax base will continue to decline. If there's a better answer or another developer that can create the vision we have, then please let me know. Thank you. Number 40, Kirk Crowland. I want something upscale to lift the community. Better entertainment options, someplace local we can go to work and play. I want Bristol to make the changes it needs to grow and not only serve the retirees. How about one single multi-use trail? It is an absolute shame Bristol has nothing while other communities are far ahead of Bristol. I don't want to be ashamed to tell people I bought a house in Bristol. 41, Samantha Magri. Yes, I want a mixed-use, vibrant, walkable downtown for Bristol. 42, Lori Veig. As a property owner in Bristol, I strongly support the Depot Square project. This is a great opportunity for us to turn an eyesore into a real positive for the community. Number 43, it's labeled Anonymous. I urge the City of Bristol to proceed with the project. Enough time and money has been spent on planning, and we still have a vacant lot. We need action now to replace this vacant lot with something to bring in tax dollars and, most importantly, help to attract businesses to Bristol. Our downtown looks so depressed, no one's going to want to relocate here. We can do all the renovations we want to North Main and Main, but without the Depot Square, it's window dressing for nothing. 44, Gregory Gleason. As an outside investor and a non-resident planning to relocate to Bristol, I support this project as a first step in revitalizing the downtown area. This has the potential of making Bristol a destination for young professionals looking to start a career in life in an area attractive to their lifestyles. It has been my experience that cities in similar circumstances have either moved forward with revitalization projects or they have continued to struggle to keep up with neighboring towns or cities. Ultimately, this is a bargain, a great deal for Bristol. 45, Valerie Fury. We want an active, exciting, and interesting downtown here in Bristol. That's why I support this plan. I think the Renaissance Group has provided a path to recoup our investment, and they're confident their building is in line with what we originally asked of a developer to provide the city. Have any other board members received any written communications that they would like to read into the record all by themselves? The agenda is the opening of the meeting to members of the public who wish to be heard on any agenda item.
The exercise.
Well, you're first up, Mr. Storks. Please, just for the record, when you approach the podium, people that are speaking, please state your name and your address for the record. And we are going to limit comments of each person to 3 minutes. Noel's going to time folks when you hear the buzzer go off. Are you giving them a warning, or are you just buzzing them? Noel, are you going to give like a 15-second warning, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll hear the first bell at 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Mr. Storts, you're first up. Bill. I have nothing more to say.
Bill Storts, 31 Oxbow Drive, Bristol, Connecticut. First, I would appreciate it if the board members would speak directly into the microphone so that all can hear. It's been a problem recently. Next, I have a question of a rhetoric nature. How does one get information and answers if the board won't respond to questions? I've submitted questions before and so in writing today and previously with no response. Will the latest submission be any different? Lastly, I do not think that the city should be getting into the property management business. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Average. Again, I apologize, I don't know his name.
That's okay.
Richard Average, 60 Michigan Avenue. Private equity market and two professional appraisers accurately predicted that Renaissance's financial plans would fail. If they were wrong, where's all the private money Renaissance talked about? A BDDC motion stated obtaining all means of funding to construct the first building on Depot Square. Does BDDC plan to stick taxpayers for the subsidized apartments, and since nobody can find private funds for the retail part, stick taxpayers for the retail too? Why subsidize the apartments in Depot Square? Even Renaissance admits the market value of those buildings will be worth less than cost. Why deny businesses the right to build where they want? To force them to build in Depot Square? Won't businesses just tell Bristol to go to hell and move out of town? Renaissance said no low-income housing, but their workforce housing does not exclude low incomes. You like areas for people to walk and shop, but what about the increased crime with subsidized high-density housing and the history of gangs chasing customers out of similar areas? After adjustments, seems Renaissance's plans didn't meet state requirements. They still want $5 million from CHAMP, $7 million from Bristol, unknown millions from CHFA, unknown millions from the Connecticut City and Town Development Act. Bristol has already spent over $10 million and offered $2 million for infrastructure. Citizens want private funding, not Renaissance's maybe. If all goes well, you might get a refund. Where's the private funding for the other 17 to 20 buildings? Are we going to get stuck with subsidized housing and none of the businesses talked about? That's not a vibrant downtown. It's a big subsidized housing project. The Bristol Press showed more citizen support for just cleaning up the area than for Renaissance's plan. The PLCD survey showed citizens want lower taxes and had low interest in apartments for families with children. So private investors, two professional appraisers, accurately predicted failure. Two recent studies have shown Bristol citizens don't want and don't need more subsidized housing. Even the state says we don't need more subsidized housing. Don't approve something the citizens of Bristol don't want and don't need. Vibrant downtown hell. Don't stick Bristol with higher taxes for a high-density subsidized housing project. Thank you.
Thank you. Rochelle Levins.
Good evening, Chairperson and members of the board. I don't know if this is all right? The following questions are just some...
I'm sorry, Ms. Levins, just your address for the record.
Oh, sorry. Rochelle Levins, 88 Old Turnpike Road, Bristol, Connecticut. Thank you. The following questions are just some left unanswered. Bristol taxpayers paid $5.5 million to a private company 6 or 7 years ago. Wasn't the plan to sell it to a private developer using private funds so the city would retain control over that property? That's why we bought it in the first place. Number two, $7 million more out of the taxpayers' pockets, probably more if we are held responsible for cost overruns. There's always cost overruns, so $7 million may be just the beginning for one building. Number three, is the city now expected to add a realty rental department and hire employees at union wages and run that department with benefits, retirements, and other costs? Where will this rental department find leasees when Renaissance seems not to have been able to find them in 5 years, and that's why they don't want to handle it? Number four, who will be paying for the parking that will be needed if building number 2, number 3, number 4, etc. get built? Will that come out of the taxpayers also? Number 5, who will maintain and use the piazza? What is the reason for the piazza without retail? Will the crime move across the street then from Brackett Park, where multiple complaints of drug deals happening in the light of day? There was just a mugging there, I think it was last week. Are they really expecting a floodgate to open and everybody will want to rent a store there? Have you all observed the empty retail already downtown with more coming soon right across the street? Number 6, what exactly is mixed use in the context of this specific application? Low income, middle income, Section 8? What is it? Can somebody be specific for us? Number 7, will there be taxes paid from day one on this property by the developer and in the foreseeable future? Number 8, who is in charge of vetting the new investors? Are the original investors still involved with the project? Bristol residents need streets paved. We need City Hall renovated. We need an arts and cultural center. We need more sports facilities. We need parks that need to have improvements. Our police department needs our support with all the crime. Bristol is in the midst of a well-orchestrated fight against blight. There is so much good happening. Bristol Blues, Arts in Town, new businesses, restaurants, 60,000 people to support them. We are fighting blight created by absentee landlords. Do we really want to add another one to the downtown? Look at the history of non-owner occupied buildings in Bristol. They already said they do not want to handle retail there. So it has to be paid, or it has to be paid for by itself. If you insist tying Bristol to this finance development and leasing plan past the foreseeable future,
Ms. Levinson, sorry, just
you will
finish the sentence.
be denying the funds for progress to much needed, which is much needed elsewhere in our city. Bristol is so much more than just Depot Square. Clean it and green
Sorry, your time is
it.
up.
Private enterprise is what built a great America. Let it work in Bristol, please.
Thank you. Terry Lugo?
Hi, I'm Terry Lugo, and I own and live at my home at 66 Summer Street. As many of you already know, my husband Victor and I own Barley Vine, located at 182 Main Street, directly across from the proposed Depot Square. Barley Vine has been open for almost 3 years now. At that time, neither of us thought we would have or ever guessed that I'd be standing here in front of you pleading that you move this development plan forward. I know that these things take a very long time, as so many have told us when they hear our frustration. But now I fear that there is a strong chance that this may not even happen, and we may have to start at the very beginning. We see so many of our fellow downtown business owners closing their doors because business is suffering due to lack of people in our downtown. Why should people come downtown when there really isn't anything there? Victor and I, along with our 20 employees, work very hard at making Barley Vine a positive force for our downtown and a place where customers have a great experience and hopefully they'll return. But we are barely getting by, and this was not the plan. We opened Barley Vine in Bristol because we thought that this development was going to happen. We invested because we believed, and we were told that this development was going to happen. Not only were we told, but the plan had been approved by our city government. Zoning changes were made for the plan, all was in place to move this forward. At this point in time, we would have expected there to be construction started. So after almost 3 years, Barley Vine is scraping by, and we've not been able to recover our investment. This was not part of our plan. The plan was to be part of a vibrant development that would be economically sustainable. If this plan does not happen, and we have to begin the whole process again, or even worse, put in a sports field or open up property for different developers who would possibly put in other drugstores, dollar stores, and whatnot, then I'm quite sure what is going to happen. I'm not quite sure what is going to happen to Barley Vine at that point and our staff. Also, just so you understand, Barley Vine and other businesses like ours, the businesses that would open across the street in this plan, along with the apartments, pay taxes, which keeps the city and state of Connecticut economically moving. Barley Vine does not get tax breaks. We pay sales tax, we pay property tax, we pay payroll tax, we pay unemployment tax, and we pay income tax. We are part of the machine that keeps Bristol moving forward. So I guess everyone can choose to continue to wait and let this barren 17-acre property stay barren, until some miracle investment money happens to come our way. And I guess you can continue to watch downtown businesses closing and witness streets full of empty buildings which will remain empty, and you can rest assured that this is where your valuable tax dollars are going, to a bunch of emptiness.
Thank you. Joe Gelladino?
Good evening. Ryan, this isn't personal. Number one, I'm totally against this project. None of it makes sense to myself and many other taxpayers. He does have a great support of the fan club here. Right? I'd like to know how many of them are taxpayers. I pay taxes on several properties in Bristol. When taxes go up, it comes out of my pocket. None of the figures work for me. As a developer, I've been building for 48 years. They've gone through two major developers, have backed out. Banks won't lend money. I just can't see my tax dollars and your tax dollars and these people's tax dollars supporting a project. I read an article today, I believe Mr. Collins, it was written by Mr. Collins, that they're going to pay back the first $7 million out of the commercial loan, out of commercial property. But again, 2 weeks ago, they said commercial, there wasn't really room for commercial. So I'm kind of confused. About 8 years ago, I bought a white towel and they threw it in. I said, I can't figure out what's going on in Bristol. But I didn't want to spend the money on the white towel today because I may need it for my taxes in 2 or 3 years. Where are these millions coming from? As a developer, when I do a commercial piece of property, I have to allow so many parking spots. Today, at 11:30, there was 187 cars parked across City Hall and on Main Street. 187 cars. I've asked the question several times. Where is all the parking? So now we got to pay for a parking garage. How many million is that? 30 million? They want square foot prices. I build homes in Bristol and I rent them. You can't get the dollars that Mr. Porter's talking about. It's a dream that's going to turn into a nightmare. What's happening, what's good in this town is our town officials that are taking care of life and our building officials. This is going to add to it in 5-7 years. Riverview over here, is, what I heard today was only 70 to 80% full, and they've been here for 8 years. So what makes out-of-state people come to Bristol and say they're going to fill it, and they're going to pay us back with the money they have coming in? None of this makes sense to me. It's going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars going nowhere. And I don't know how many of them people on that, you know, whatever you want to call it, that sheet are taxpayers. But those taxpayers could have went around and got signatures too. It's just a shame that so many people think that this is, you know, we have to support everybody. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you.
Johnson?
Richard Johnson, 54 Primrose Lane. I don't know where to start. First of all, we're talking about downtown development. Let's tell it what it is. We're not doing a downtown development. We're developing a piece of land in downtown. These people, 45 people that took a half hour or 45 minutes to read all their letters and names and so forth, they're dreaming. Do they have any concept of what they're going to end up with if they get everything that they're asking for? Did any of you see Steve Collins' blog with the financial report and a picture of the lot with the new building on it? Did any of you see it? It takes up 33% of the parcel. That's a dream from hell that you're going to compare it with Blueback Square. Blueback Square had something going on around it. People were coming there. Blueback Square added to it. We're looking for a desperation drive, and we're going to throw our money at desperation and hope it works. You got money that's going out to a builder that's got no hope of coming up with the money. He's going to make money building the building, so he's not going to lose. He's playing with everybody else's money. He's got government-funded housing. That's a dream. If this project was presented to the council at the time that they were bidding for people to get the thing started, these people would have never gotten that off the ground if they told them that this is what we had ahead of us. Now, for a company like this to go for, I don't know how long it's been, 5 years, 7 years, 20 years, I don't care how long it's been, but to not have a plan for financing and wait until the last minute to come up with financing, something's wrong here. Something's not being told the way it is. So open your eyes, people. Take a look at that thing in Steve Collins' block, and what are you going to end up with? You're still going to have North Main Street on the other side is what it is now. If it doesn't have any appeal now, guess what? It's not going to have any more appeal after you build the building. And you're going to end up with less than a half a block of new buildings. So what the hell are we giving our money for? What are we giving our money for? Hope? A wish? A dream? Let's get some facts behind us. Let's see what the hell we got. And then go from there. Don't hope for something and throw money at it and hope it sticks. That's all I ask. Just be conscientious.
Thank you. Michael J. Dudko.
Michael J. Dudko, 116 Lewis Road. Basing a lot of my comments on, I read from last month the media's articles on, some of the items in the plan. What struck me is the $7 million from the city, and yeah, we're optimistic that in 20 years we might is the word, get back $4 million from the developers on the project with the rents of apartments. What struck me was, wow, only 6 commercial spaces balanced with 100 apartment units. That originally across the street was a commercial property. This plan, this idea that we're reaching up to is a residential thing, and it's not commercial, an elaborate commercial plan that's here. It's irresponsible. Only 6 commercial spaces, and the total could be more than $20 million. Let's see, I added up 8.7 for the 8.7 million for the Connecticut Housing Finance Administration loan, 5 million for the state CHAMP loan, 3.9 loan from the city of Bristol, 3.1 private, okay, 3 million city infrastructure, that might be the PS. That adds up to be $23 million project for only 6 commercial spaces. We were supposed to revitalize on that basis. This is reflective of our nation, of our state. We've been irresponsible for 30 years with financing. We got great problems on the federal level. The state is in trouble. The state doesn't have a great deal of money to loan out on projects. My background is in science. I dealt with numbers. There are people who have accounting background. This doesn't add up. This is the $20 million for only 6 commercial spaces. That's not revitalizing across the street. Smaller malls in the front built over time would be better. The letters I heard all were flowery at the beginning. These flowery letters, I don't think these people know money, the amounts that are involved. $20 million. Oh, that's what you got to realize this is going to cost. There's a cost involved. I don't think this is going to return in the long run. And if you go with this group, it's risky behavior. It's a bad deal. It's too much for too little.
Thank you. Lorraine Matusevich?
My name's Lorraine Matusevich, and I live on 156th Street in Bristol. I've come to some of the meetings from the Renaissance. This company promised says the world. It's been thrown out of Naugatuck for doing the same thing that they're doing to our town right now. They do not, maybe I'm wrong, do they have any other city or in any other state a development going on? What's their next project, or are we keeping them alive?
Thank you. Janice Tompkins?
Janice Tompkins, Lane, Bristol. It's very obvious Renaissance doesn't have the financing behind them, and apparently they have much difficulty getting any, except for us from the city. They have had so much time to get a building up there, and then the building they were concentrating on, they keep downsizing it. If they have so much trouble putting the first building up, are we going to go through this with each and every parcel or item that they have to take care of doing this project? They certainly have had too much time, and they've had a lot of our money. I feel it's time to cut our losses, get off the pot, and get somebody else to do the job.
Thank you. Frank Kramer?
Hi, Frank Kramer, 40 Crescent Drive, Bristol, Connecticut. So, something clearly destined to fail is better than nothing. It's a logic that more suited to Alice in Wonderland than the current reality that we now face. We're now faced with a cool $7 million $7.5 million taxpayer tab. Maybe to enable a failed scheme whose failed vision 1.0, which they then downgraded to Vision 2.0. I'm going to call them versions from now on. Then versions 3.0, 4.0, and ad infinitum. Look, if R&D and its enablers, okay, your enablers, if all its enablers obtain CHAMP and CFHA and beyond are not going to be free updates at all. Depot Square is not an iPhone. It's not an Android, and it's not Candy Crush updates at no charge. We're not dealing with a successful corporation like Apple. We have a Renaissance Depot, which has never put one shovel in the ground in its existence. Anytime, anywhere. Fellow Bristolites, not one single person here should be shocked, surprised, or frustrated at these shenanigans. When you arrive at the disheartening conclusion that such a systemic we have here, embedded by the codependency between the Chamber of Commerce in Bristol, the Renaissance Downtown, the BDDC, and sundry others, and sadly including some of our elected officials who swore oaths to watch our backs. Such a system can fail us. Why? Because all these elements embedded in the system was never in any conceivable way was designed to protect us. The Chamber, Renaissance Downtowns, and sadly this body we euphemistically call the Building Development Downtown Corporation is failing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Adams?
Andrea Adams, 67 Bayberry Drive. Good evening. The only thing growing in our town is the number of kids on free or reduced lunch. And this is who we are attracting, not tax-paying individuals. In the year 2000, 25% of our students were on free or reduced lunch. That number rose to 36% in 2010 and to 47% in 2014. Is this the direction we want to continue? Why not build a demographic that includes millennials that are working and paying taxes? Which demographic do you want to attract? Just wanted to hand these out to Jen and give them to the BDC members. I actually found some information of cities and towns that actually have invested in their downtown revitalization. There's Albany in Georgia, and this gentleman actually says the key to revitalizing downtown was to combine private investment with public money to stimulate growth and vitality to the area. No one is going to walk into town and save Albany. You have to do it yourself. I have St. Albans in Vermont that actually talks about public sector financing, and that the belief was that strategically used public funds would result in private investment. That proved to be correct. Quincy, Mass., the city is looking at partnering with a private developer, and they're going to borrow $96 million just to upgrade downtown infrastructure and build a parking garage. And last but not least, I have some more at home if you want them, but I only printed out a few. Public leadership of Asheville Downtown Revitalization, they also partnered private and public partnership. Their downtown was a disaster like ours, and you'll see what it is today if you read this.
Thanks. Dave Haverfield?
David Haverfield, 110 Divinity Street. I'm here to speak in favor of the project. I always try to keep my points to the ones I'm qualified to make from my unique perspective. For those unfamiliar, I'm an investor and a landlord here in Bristol, and I have more than 100 units. Although I don't say this with complete confidence, I believe I know the rental market in Bristol better than anyone in the room. From that perspective, I can tell you with confidence that I believe these apartments will rent. The housing market is red hot here. My phone rings off the hook. My crews and I cannot acquire and renovate nearly enough apartments to satisfy the demand right now. If these were my apartments, I could rent them all. And this is all without much support from ESPN and Bristol hospital tenants. I have less than 10 ESPN people, and I seek them out. It's because there's a stigma that Bristol isn't good enough for them. We lose them to West Hartford, Southington, Plainville, etc. Those are professionals with income, and we can all agree we want as many of them to live in our town as possible. This project is the best shot possible to end that trend and keep them here. I also keep hearing about low-income and affordable housing. I'm pretty well versed in affordable housing, low-income housing, and workforce housing. I'm confident that you all know the difference by now, but most people still don't. I'm not saying low-income is all bad, but I think we all agree we have enough of it and don't want more. Do all of you know why nice towns have little or no low-income housing? Avon, Simsbury, West Hartford, for example, almost none, right? But it's not legal to turn down a tenant for having Section 8 voucher. So why don't people with a Section 8 voucher rent there? The answer is very simple, but most people miss it. The answer is because they can't afford it. I hope you weren't expecting a fancier answer than that. Section 8 caps the amount a tenant can pay, not what Section 8 will contribute. They cap what the tenant is allowed to pay. So if Section 8 says they'll pay $700 and Renaissance is charging $800, they cannot move in. The tenant is not allowed to pay the $100 difference even if they wanted to. I'm not sure everyone knows how this works, but I want to make sure that everyone knows that Section 8 tenants cannot move into these units as they're planned. And that brings me to the one concern I have about the project. Please find a way to make sure that this project never goes the way of Huntington Woods. Huntington Woods is a tragedy, and I never want to see forced low-income requirement here. I never felt I had a satisfactory response. No low income now, no low income in the future. It's really my only concern. The CHAMP grant gives you extra points for low income, but it is not a requirement. Low income is not a requirement of the CHAMP grant. For the rest of the project, it is what I want. It's what other people my age want. The ones that are still here in Bristol anyways. The project may have lost a lot of its momentum, but it doesn't make it less viable. We need it, and our businesses need it. I liked Milestone. Center Pizza was okay. I also like Downtown Cafe, and you guys know Victor's mad. I hate the thought of him ever leaving. How many years until Plan B comes along? People aren't going to wait for it. $7 million is a small price to pay. The CHAMP grant stamp money, I know it's a pessimistic view, but do any of you think Malloy was going to spend it on anything better than this? Take that money for Bristol before it goes somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela?
And Alette, 174 Summer Street. Thanks for taking the time to hear us tonight. I apologize for my voice, a little under the weather, and also for talking so quickly, but the clock is ticking. I grew up in Bristol in the 80s and 90s, and I hated living here. I saw the town as old and tired and basically decaying. So at 18, I left. I wanted to do something amazing with my life, and I didn't think I could accomplish that in a town like this. So I applied to Naval Academy, shipped off to Annapolis, and never looked back. I remember feeling such relief that I had escaped this town. Fast forward 10 years, after completing my service obligation, I moved back to Connecticut. Not Bristol, though, of course. I got a condo in Avon. But lo and behold, a few months later, I met a guy. And when I found out he was from Bristol, I winced a little bit. When I found out he was from the west end of Bristol, I almost didn't give him my number. In the end, I did, and through that relationship, I found myself spending quite a bit of time back in Bristol and trying to escape. As fate would have it, that was the same year that Renaissance showed up in town. As I got involved with the project, I began to understand their plan, and a weird thing began to happen. I began to have some hope for Bristol. I had never experienced that before. Renaissance had a plan, a real plan that makes sense if you take the time to understand it. That work grew, and I became more and more involved with the project and met more and more amazing people through that. And a few short years later, I wound up buying a house on Federal Hill. So now I'm back. I'm here. I am contributing to the city tax roll for the gentleman who's been asking. Yes, I pay a lot of taxes to Bristol. Been buying and supporting local, and even buying up some iffy multifamily properties and trying to fix them up and rent them to solid tenants. Just today, in fact, I got signed a contract for another multifamily house. It's currently condemned. It's about to be on a demolition list according to the building department. If all goes according to plan, I'll close next month, fix it up, make it safe again, and rent it to good tenants. And put it back on the tax roll. The reason I'm sharing this story is that there's so many people out there like me that had a bad taste of Bristol initially, but thanks to the hope that Renaissance has shown us, we see some potential for this city. We want to contribute, we want to help, we want to see Bristol become something better than it is right now. But without Renaissance, without this project, that hope is gone. Without that hope, people like me are gone. We will leave, slowly but surely, and we'll take our commitment and our energy and our desire to do great things, and we'll bring them to another town. Supporting this project is not an easy decision. I understand that. I understand that there is risk involved. That's no secret. But the right decision is going to take courage. The wrong decision is going to be easy. It's easy to appease the naysayers and send Renaissance packing. But the right decision is going to take courage. There is no plan B. This is it. This is the best we've got. We need to run with this. The town's in a unique position to grab something great for generations to come, and people like me are ready and willing to help. But we need you guys to commit first. You need to lead the way, and we will follow.
Thank you. Sean Roos.
Good evening, Sean Rest, 53 Lancaster Road. Last time I spoke to you all, I spoke to you about mixed-use development, how it's the most difficult to finance. I'm sure most of you are aware, it's planning and zoning regulations that are preventing development over here. There's development going on elsewhere in Bristol. We have commercial development and residential development happening. We have over on Pine Street where the Route 72 extension is, we have a lot of commercial activity going on that we didn't have before. We don't have a train over here, we have a bus. This is transit-oriented development, so unless you think there's a lot of people that are riding this bus that's going to spur economic growth, I think it's a recipe for failure. Maybe somebody once said 20 years ahead of its time. But hey, if our planning board is anti-business, or zoning board, then it is. So all you can do is pay attention to the free market. There's not investment capital here. I think it's immoral to turn to the taxpayer and put the risk on the taxpayer. It's easy for people to say, well, it's the wrong thing to do, don't listen to the naysayers, but I say to the paysayers, do you have any idea how many people are on a fixed budget in this town? I mean, we could potentially be at the tipping point if this thing starts to go south, and it already is going south, in my opinion. So, everything else I've already said to you all, so have a good evening.
Thank you. Ed Dudko.
Ed Dudko, 116 Lewis Road.
Sean, I went outside, I had a cigarette before when they were reading the propaganda letters. I saw the Connecticut Fast Track go by, one person on it. He was driving. It's ridiculous.
This board didn't approve the bus.
Well, I don't approve of this Renaissance plan. I would pull the plug if I were you. I've heard things, my brother knows it, from what happened to my family with the eminent domain in the southeast business park where the Booburn land was. Oh, you were going to make so much money in tax revenue over the years. You haven't taken in a dime. That's 18 years ago. Like, we're going to get our money back after 21 years? I don't think so. I see, you can ask any cop, if you put a high concentration of people in a small area, you know what's usually going to happen? It's not going to become artsy-fartsy. It's going to become nicey. That's what happens. I'm not for this plan at all. I think it's going to be a big money waste. You already paid for the report from Goldman in York, wasn't it? Who said this plan is never going to work? I'd pull the plug if I were you folks. I'd really pull the plug. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott McDonald?
Hello, Scott McDonald, 27 Winter Green Road, Bristol, Connecticut. Sorry. I'll be forthright with this. I have absolutely no background in business whatsoever. I do, however, have a background in art. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that this project, and maybe I am a dreamer, but every artist that I've ever studied has told me dreams are a good thing. And I was educated in Bristol in these schools, so I know that sounds a little pie in the sky, but the education I received here allowed me to go to school and allowed me to become a published writer. So I've never been this nervous before doing stand-up comedy. I think that, I know it does sound very ideological and maybe a little far-fetched that anything like Blueback Square can happen in Bristol. But if we acknowledge that there is a serious artist base in Connecticut, not just in Bristol, but in Connecticut, because the people that come here, it's not just going to be all people from Bristol, they're going to be coming from other towns. Just the same way people in Bristol go to other towns. They're not just going to appear out of nowhere. So if we acknowledge that it is possible and we're not dismissive of that reality, good things will happen here. Again, I don't have any business numbers, but I do know a lot of artists, and there are a lot of great artists in Bristol and all over the state. So the idea that nothing is happening here artistically is false. I can see that with my own eyes. As far as somebody commented about Blueback Square earlier, they said that it'll never happen here because if you look at what's around Blueback Square, there's all these cultural structures there, like whether it's a little coffee shop, open mic place, or a little tiny art space, but those places do bring people, and where there's a lot of people, that's where businesses want to go. And I'll just end with this. I was watching the show Cosmos the other day. Neil deGrasse Tyson hosts it now instead of Carl Sagan, and he said that a pyramid is the most stable structure you can build. And I think what we're doing is we're rushing to put a capstone on a pyramid that doesn't exist yet, because we're quibbling about how the foundation should look like or how it should be laid. But if we don't lay a foundation, there will never be an opportunity to put a capstone on this. So forgive that awful metaphor, but that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Brittany Barney?
Hi, I'm Brittany Barney, 128 Queen Street, and I'd like to point out that I did buy a house in Bristol in 2013, so I am a taxpayer, so I hope that qualifies me to have an opinion on this matter. First of all, I find it very unfair and quite disheartening that so many people are drawing character conclusions of the signers of this petition based on their level of optimism for our city. I find it very exciting and interesting, and it makes me happy that I bought a home here to know that so many other people are vested in the future of this city. To sit here and listen to all the people that don't want it to happen honestly makes me want to draft up an offer or call my realtor and put my house on the market and move, because I don't want to live somewhere where nobody believes in the town that I'm from. It really is kind of insulting to me, to be honest. I think one important concept that people refuse or are neglecting to acknowledge about this about this proposition is that, we can't expect people to come to a business if there's nobody around to go to it. Having that walkability is very important, and I can tell you from experience, I was just helping my sister find an apartment on a short term's notice, and I wish that all these properties this other guy was developing were available, because from the options she ended up renting an apartment that was in her price range, and we found out on the news that it was the gentleman that's been renting out properties and is going to be arrested and is renting out blighted properties in town. So I would like to have a list of all the wonderful landlords that exist so that I could pass that on to my coworkers at Connecticut, and maybe they'd be more interested in living in Bristol. I don't mean to sound so negative, but it's really hard to sit here and listen to all this negativity with no solution. I'd like to hear one. I thank Victor Lugo for letting me know to come down here, because I don't pay attention to Facebook as often as I should, and I wouldn't have known this was going on, and I really am glad that I could be here to offer my opinion. I live down the street from Barleyvine. I live in the crime-ridden neighborhood of Federal Hill. I find it very pleasant and beautiful. Every picture I post on Instagram gets at least 30 likes. Yeah, so basically, I just feel like this is a great project. If planning was the issue, then that's not an excuse. It's been 5 years. I worked at Supernatural. I watched these gentlemen come in and out, working all day, and trying very hard to put together a proposition for a town that they're not even from, and have this kind of vested interest in their city. And to hear the things about the Bristol Blues and all the great things that are happening, those are a direct result of Renaissance downtowns. I did not see any citizen groups coming together before that happened to make our town a better place to live in. That's a direct result of Renaissance helping to create Bristol Rising, which has helped to create this pride in our city that was so lacking. And I really wish that all these people with opinions were around when they were tearing down all the buildings that made this a beautiful downtown in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Cohen?
Steve Cohen, 331 Main Street. Good evening. I don't wish anything poor, and I don't mean this harshly, on the people that came to support the proposed project. I give them an awful lot of credit, because I know how they feel about this city. I really do. It's in their eyes, it's in their voices. Anybody can see that. And I give them a lot of credit for doing that, because it's not easy to get up here, and believe me, I know. It's not easy to get up here and take the podium and say what's on your mind. They all want what's best for Bristol. And I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to be nice or I want to be liked, because I've taken many stands that I wasn't too concerned whether I was liked or not. But these people do care about Bristol, and they want what's best for us. I do too. I really do. And I've lived on Main Street for 20 years, almost 21 years. And I don't think this is the right project. I just can't see it. It just isn't going to work. If that downtown parcel was so valuable, we wouldn't be subsidizing anything. The developers would be beating our door down to come here. Why don't they want to come here? What's wrong with Bristol? I'll tell you what's wrong with Bristol. It's an old, tired industrial city, and it's got a lot of run-down, substandard housing. And we're getting crime here that we never saw before, and it scares the hell out of me, I'll tell you that. Now, I'm not saying we throw in the towel and we walk away. No, we don't. We have to try and fix it. What's the alternative? We have to try and fix it. But we've got to fix the problems first. Clean up the blighted property. Get rid of some of this rotten housing. We don't even realize how rotten some of these neighborhoods are. They're rotten to the core. They're cockroach infested, they're crime infested, drug infested. Yes, it's hard to accept that. Nobody wants to hear that. But it's the truth. And unless we clean that up, then people will come here. They'll want to be in Bristol. They don't want to be in Bristol now. No developer wants to come here and take a risk for what? That's why it's being subsidized. That's why they want your money. This is common sense. And I think you folks know that. I really believe that. but there's a good spirit in the city. I think it can come back. I really do. Honest, so help me. I wouldn't be standing here. But not this way. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of the public comment session. Next item of business, next item on the agenda is new business.
Could I speak? I didn't get to sign up. May I?
Yes, you may.
I didn't get a chance to sign up. Cheryl Tebow, 73 Yard Drive. First of all, I want to thank you all for the effort you put in. It's oftentimes a thankless job, and it's very difficult to weigh all the opinions and options and numbers that you're reviewing, so I want to thank you for that. I, too, like many people in this house, I bought a house in Bristol, so although I bought mine 23 years ago. So I invested in this town as well. And I'm watching the passion that's in this room. And the passion just didn't come to Bristol when Renaissance came to town. I'll share a story for some of the things. 11 years ago, we did our first aquatic rubber duck race. Okay, we did our 11th one this year. That was going on before. The Forestville Village Association established 12 years ago. So people have a desire to see this town develop. It doesn't die. And if this deal doesn't go through, I'm not selling my house because I know good things are going to happen in Bristol. That's how we do it. You dust off your shoes, you get back up. I'll share one other story. We've spent 5 years talking with Renaissance, and probably by now you probably recognize I'm not convinced, and this is as a citizen, not as any other position I might sit on or board or sit on. I am not convinced, based on my analysis of the numbers, and I am the controller for a company, that this is an investment that I would like to see my taxpayers going through. But I'll relate it to a story. I went out with this fellow named Brent for 5 years. Okay, I invested a lot in that relationship. I thought this was the guy, okay? Boy, was I wrong, okay? And I was able to find something better that came along, and had been happily married to my husband Wayne for almost 24 years, so I waited. I found the better things. So sometimes just accepting the only thing that is available for you to look at, because it's the only deal we have, is not the right reason for choosing it. Now, if we do this $7 million on top of the $5 million of land that exists as well, and then there's, from what I understand, there's property tax abatements that go with this that could add another couple $1 million. I just want to remind you that 1 mill in our town is worth about $4 million. So if we're talking 7 to 8 million, we're talking 2 mills. So if you own a $200,000 home and you have a 2 mil increase, think of what that adds to the taxpayer. So people who really feel that the town is going to crumble if this goes away, we can make other things work here. So thank you.
2 minutes on that, please.
All right, anybody who's going to speak, since I allowed Cheryl, you have to promise that you're going to sign my form. I'll pass it down to the end of the row.
Daniel Satula, 135 Deborah Lane here in Bristol. I'll remember this date perhaps till my entire time on earth goes. November 1970, it was the first drawing of the Connecticut lottery, which was $50,000, won by a fellow by the name of Archie Rule in Bristol, ironically. The occasion for the date was the dedication of the redevelopment across the street. I was the real estate appraiser for the redevelopment agency for a 2.5-year period, brought in to get 3 dead projects going, which we did, and then I left. It was all privately financed, went quickly. We had the Grandways, 2 major stores, Grandway on the north side, St. John on the south side, and 75% of the commercial areas within the mall itself were rented, and the remainder were rented after. The people that signed up for the smaller commercial areas, okay, were people that were here, that were displaced by the redevelopment, but wanted to stay downtown. It was mentioned here quickly. Watch my time, because I won't take but 2 minutes. We were a vibrant town manufacturing-wise. New Departure, Superior Electric, Ingram's, who had just moved down to Bristol and Hill Road and whatnot. So we're doing great. That's all gone, folks. Not coming back. Bristol's got to be thankful for ESPN. The thing about the funding now, and banks, and was mentioned here now, the only key to private financing now, okay, done by banks, is a thing called the Dodd-Frank bill. Banks have to cover their butts, okay? Because if they don't, they are in big trouble. The proposal that Renaissance has on the table is not financeable by private investment, private banks. We've got to look at it. We had 2 big appraisals done. The Renaissance appraisal done 3 years ago was almost $35 million in the hole. 10-year projection period, 95% rented at the rental rates that were suggested by Renaissance. The Bristol appraisal that was done by McCain out of Cheshire, and see, I'm talking about appraisals because I'm a retired appraiser. He was $34 million. My gosh, if you go to your doctor tomorrow and he tells you you have cancer and your time is 6 months, and you tell him because you have a rash on your hand, it's not cancer, you've got a problem. We have a major problem here. Think about it and make a good business decision. We've got a lot of big investors in Bristol, okay, that haven't even looked at it. And as far as the project goes, we've got to commend the Janet boys. Year and a half, okay, they did a great project, 62 units or 70 units, fully rented, a great project. Private money, private investment by a bank. Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice, gone. Thank you. New business, treasurer's report, action on pending invoices. Do we have any pending invoices? No. Okay. We'll pass that one. Next item is report from Renaissance on the financing, development, and leasing plan, and to take any necessary action. Mr. Porter, we accepted your plan last week, and I told you that the plan was that the commissioners, directors would have an opportunity to review it and come prepared with their questions this evening. So I'd like you now to take questions from the board. Who wants to start?
Mr. Chairwoman, can I just ask a question quickly? Will I have a chance to respond to the comments by the public, or
no?
Okay.
I know board members have questions. Who wants to start? Or do you want me to pick one of you? Joe, you want to go first?
Thank you. I just wanted to, I wanted you to go over one more time the different unit sizes and compare them to other projects that you've done or that you are comparing this project to.
Sure.
The studio, the 1-bedroom, the 2-bedroom, and why you chose that number.
Sure. So the selection of the unit sizes and the mix of units is a combination of a whole bunch of things. So first, it's we had Zimmerman Volk Associates do our residential analysis here. They did the original study back in 2011. They did an update to the study in 2013. Zimmerman Volk and Associates, I can provide you their information, is pretty much preeminently the top residential analyst in the entire country, especially for this type of work. So in concert with their recommendations, our experience in the market, what we're programming for other projects of similar typology throughout the Northeast, including New England, and our architecture team that is currently working on the project at a more specific level, that has actually done a significant amount of projects in this area, in the central Connecticut region. That's how we came up with the unit typologies, on top of, last but certainly not least, the requirements for CHFA and for DOH through the CHAMP and CHAFA programs. So it was basically, we came up with a module and a breakdown that we thought was the best for the market, and then we had to adjust that to meet the CHAMP and DOH financing requirements. So it was a combination of a whole lot of opinions.
Just to follow up, did you do any kind of a study in what is in Bristol right now? Just some of the information that I was able to gather is that most of the projects have a predominance of 2-bedroom and then as a second 1-bedroom and very few studios. In your project, You have 40 studios, 49 one-bedrooms, and 11 two-bedrooms.
Sure.
I just wonder if you went around Bristol and took a look at what's out there.
So part of ZBA's analysis is to analyze, I'll call it comparable, but it's not really comparable. The problem we have is that there is no comparable product really around here. In every project we're working in every mixed-use development in suburban areas that's going on right now, and I could get you letters from some of the top development companies in addition to us in the country that we're working directly with. The over-programming of 2- and 3-bedroom units has become a significant issue in a lot of those projects. The under-programming of the studio unit has become a significant opportunity. So it's a combination of a whole bunch of things, but honestly there is no comparable product in our eyes that exists in this area that fits the bill for the market that we're trying to attract. In addition to that, obviously, a ton of local surveying that we've done. So we spent the better part, before you were able to be part of this process, of 2 years surveying community members. We have over 200 letters of intent for rental products. And we work very closely with local developers and renters that have a significant amount of experience. So, you know, everything from our recent partners, premier partners who are part of our team, that is currently developing new product right now and sees the demand for the studios and the ones that exist here, to Mr. Haverfeld, who stood up and we spend a lot of time talking to. I think since I've been here, he's probably developed 50 to 75 of the 100 units that he's developed. And so it's a combination of a whole bunch of stuff, but it's not a decision that we take very lightly. It's a decision that we take very seriously.
We had talked about getting to know the investor.
Sure.
Will we have a chance to get information on the investor, to chat with him, et cetera, and what's your plan about that?
Sure. So I'm just going to preempt that real quickly, just to make sure that I introduce the team that I have with me tonight. I have our real estate attorney, Tim Fury, who's local. Everybody knows Tim. I have from our architecture team, I have Paul Selno. I have from our consulting team for the CHAMP and CHFA financing, Brad Scheid. I have from the Premier Partners and Mark Olins, who's the investor I believe you're speaking of, here with me this evening. I have Pat Snow, I have Mark Olins, and I have Andres Haji, who are all with us this evening. Mr. Olins and I have met and spoke about this on a couple of occasions since our submission and when those questions came up. I had asked the board to schedule an executive session. He's more than happy to sit in an executive session and discuss details that he's comfortable with sharing about the financing and his experience. It's most of the questions that I would imagine the board has is not appropriate for a public setting, but we had planned on having that session tonight in anticipation of that very question. If the board chooses not to take advantage of that session, we're happy to set up a meeting as soon as possible to go through any of those questions.
Ryan, just following up on that, at last week's meeting, I had asked you about the LLC that Mr. Olins is listed as the member, because I believe that's the partner, and whether he was the sole member or whether there were other partners at the time you didn't know. Can you tell us? I don't think that's a matter for executive session. Is he the sole member of that LLC?
He is the sole member, but Mr. Olins will be bringing on other investors to be part of the capital stack for the $3 million in anticipated private equity that would go into the project.
And how far along is that process?
The process has begun, but as we've mentioned at the last Monday session, ultimately we have some terms on the table and a gentleman's agreement between us that we've been working through. It is difficult for Mr. Olins to commit the resources and the expenses necessary to negotiate the full joint venture agreement unless she has some assurances that there's going to be our partnership, the city and Renaissance, are going to be moving forward in a direction. But we're happy and excited to move that very swiftly should the board and the city choose to work with us on our proposal.
So it's your anticipation that would be done in time for the CHAMP application?
The CHAMP application, as I may have briefly mentioned, requires what you would consider soft commitments. So that could be in the form of letters of commitments. I don't believe the CHAMP application, I can ask our consultant, would require the full joint venture agreement to be negotiated? No.
But does it require disclosure of all investors? And I apologize, I usurped you, Joe. While we're on the CHAMP application, what's the status of the architectural drawings?
So we are not going to get to the 90% architectural drawings, so we'll be submitting under the points status of the 40% architectural drawings.
Are you going to be at 40% or
yes.
something? And what about the construction contractor? Do you have any proposals? Are you negotiating construction contract?
No, I provided his latest cost estimate. Ultimately, that's basically as far as we can go at 40% drawings. Once you get closer towards full CDs, then we would bid out the job. And I thought I made it pretty clear, if I didn't in the proposal to the board, that we're certainly happy to discuss adjustments to any sort of financing assistance request should we be able to bring the bids down, which hopefully we can do so once we have full drawings.
Yeah, I'm just trying to gauge the completeness of a CHAMP application. And then can you give us an update on the status of the site plan amendment with a special meeting scheduled?
Yes, so we brought the site plan, we pushed our engineers as quickly as possible to get an amended site plan in place. Our engineers submitted that site plan. We have a special meeting upcoming for the site plan amendment, and are hoping that we achieve approvals prior to the June 10th submission.
And was that meeting actually scheduled?
Yes.
Do you know when
June 1st.
June 1st.
I should have mentioned Charlie, but he wasn't sitting in the row right there. Charlie Talmadge, my assistant project manager. Sorry, Charlie. And Anna Fury, who works with us in the community liaison side. Sorry, my team works very hard. I want to make sure I get some recognition.
Sorry, Joe, I took over your...
How many projects have you done with Mr. Hollins to date?
We have not done any projects with Mr. Hollins as an investor to date. Pat, who's we've been working with for the better part of 2 years now, we were pretty instrumental in Pat's arrival in Bristol. We worked very closely with him on the 11 Summer project and multiple other projects, including Meadow Street, and one that's under construction now. But Pat has done a significant amount of work with Mr. Owens from the investment standpoint. Okay.
I just had maybe just a comment, if that's okay. So in order to submit the application, you need soft commitments.
Yes.
And what you just said was Mr. Owens would like to see where the city stands.
Yes.
With what we have to give as a soft commitment, right? Before he provides his soft commitment. Now, you're asking us to put up about $7 million, and Mr. Owens is putting up about $3 million. But you're asking us to come up with a soft commitment before he does. And I found that...
Could you clarify? Yeah, to clarify, that wasn't exactly what I said. What I said was that for us to finish our joint venture agreement, which costs a significant amount of time and money to fully negotiate that document, Mr. Owens would like to see. But Mr. Owens has already provided a letter to this board, I believe, over 2 weeks ago, saying that he was interested and that he's committed to this project if the capital stack comes together.
Ryan, the package that you submitted to the board, is that what you're submitting to CHAMP?
The pro forma, the package does not go in. The pro forma itself will be part of the consolidated funding application. So it's an online application process through a spreadsheet, which our consultant has been working on. So it gets uploaded.
But all of the information that's getting uploaded into that...
The pro forma information on the residential, yes, not the retail pro forma that I provided. because that was for the city's consideration of the investment.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at is there's nothing that's going into the CHAMP application that you have not provided to this board.
That's probably an inaccurate statement, because there are letters and things that you have to get to submit the CHAMP application that weren't submitted as part of this, because it wasn't part of our financing, leasing, and development plan requirements for submission to you.
Do you have all of that together?
Yeah, we could certainly provide you a list of what those items are.
But I mean, everything that you're required to obtain for
We're
CHAMP.
in the process of doing so right now. Yeah, we have 3 weeks till the application, and we were just meeting on where we're at.
And I guess my last question, and then I'll stop stealing your time, Jeff. Did you get any additional updates from CHAMP on the issue of whether this would have to be a subordinated ground lease?
The discussion that we had with the head of underwriting for CHFA was that the city had serious concerns about subordination, and that the city would like to request for us to be able to not have to subordinate them to CHFA. The response that we received was pretty clear that it's not something they normally do. However, that if the city is providing a commitment level and range of what we had proposed to CHFA last time we talked to them, that they'd be happy to sit with us and discuss that. That's something that's not typically done, but as a possibility. What everyone needs to understand is that this process is a very iterative process. So what we submit, and I can have Brad speak a little bit more to this if you'd like, what we submit on June 10th will get changed. It will get changed, it will get massaged, it will get discussed, it will get negotiated. There will be the need for the city to be at the table with us, with the state, to discuss each piece of the capital stack, how it's going to work, the subordination, the timing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, if there's anything I'm missing. But there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. Remember that if you submit on June 10th, ultimately the decision doesn't come until September. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's multiple agencies. And obviously, if the city were to accept the proposal, it would be city and 2 state agencies that would be coordinating.
So what was the answer to the subordination question?
The answer is that they're happy to talk to us about it.
So
but that they can't commit to it.
So traditionally they don't?
Traditionally they do not subordinate, yes.
So
No, traditionally
they're not
would not
subordinate.
ask,
Excuse me.
they would not ask the city to subordinate?
No, traditionally they would ask the city to.
They would?
Yes.
Okay. That's straight now.
Sorry.
Ryan, most of these questions have already been asked. I'm not going to ask them again, but basically, how do you feel going into this CHAMP program? You have less than 3 weeks to put it. I know you're smiling because I think you know what you have less than 3 weeks of putting this package together. There's a lot. To me, there seems to be an awful lot of holes in this thing. Once it goes through the process, you'll get an answer by September, correct? Either up or down.
Sure.
If it's down, what are your next steps?
We'd like to apply again if it's down.
And what's the process on that?
You would just reapply in December.
And how long does that take, till December to get an answer?
December is the reapplication process, and then it would be 3-4 months later that you apply it. Just to clarify, we don't think there's a lot of holes in this application.
See, we're hearing so much tonight.
That's why I smiled.
Yeah, okay.
But we feel we're going to be submitting an extremely competitive application.
Okay.
But the reality of it is that 50% of the awardees are people that already applied. Is about an average, okay? So you have a chance to be one of the people that are awarded, right, as that other 50%. So the competition pool is even thinner than that. And then it's, as you can imagine, when people get in line, they try to make sure that the people who've been in line. That does not mean that our project won't shine above. I mean, one of the huge advantages of our project is that it's a downtown revitalization. So we will have a lot of points that nobody else will have.
And they look favorable on those types of projects.
Very much so.
I know you mentioned that
very much so. I mean, I can have Brad speak more about it if you'd like, but they're excited about this type of project because regardless of what some folks have said this evening, There are a lot of very educated, very experienced, very good underwriting folks that are involved in this project that believe very strongly in this project. Just so everybody knows, we have over 100 years of real estate development experience that is sitting next to you right now. So I'm not sure the qualifications of everybody who's spoken about this project tonight. However, I'm very confident in the qualifications of my team. And that said, I think what we have here is a problem of information more than anything. I think the majority of people that came up and spoke in favor of this project have spent a lot of time learning about the project. I feel like the majority of folks that have come up and spoke against this project, with all due respect to them, because I really respect them for defending their city, very much so, and I actually have a very non-business but personal, decent relationship with a lot of these folks. I think the problem came in the most part, that we really haven't had a chance, or they haven't given me at least the opportunity, I guess, to explain the project in more detail. There were a lot of statements made this evening that were completely inaccurate. The financing, which I'm sure this board has reviewed very accurately, is nowhere near the 80+% of public gift money that people like to say. In fact, we're going to be taking almost $20 million in risk in this project.
You weren't going to be commenting on the public comment.
I tried to sneak a little bit of it.
For the crowd, can you explain what the city subordinating means? First of all, I think people need to know that. So the city owns the property. We have not talked about the value of the property or anything like that. So let's say, in terms of this deal, require that the city subordinate its position in this property. Can you explain what that means to everyone in the room, and if something went very wrong, what could happen and where the city would be? I think people need to understand that, because that's a term that is thrown around and it's fairly technical.
Sure. So, in a very general term, from a subordination standpoint, there's a line of debtors or creditors to any sort of project, and if the project were to fail, you have a place in that line, is basically how it works. And the city would not be at the bottom, but they would be below the state. So the state would be the first creditor, the city would be the second creditor, and then the private financing would be the last person to get paid. So they would be in the middle of the stack.
Kind of.
I tried to keep it
I think
fairly
it's important
layman.
that if this...
Let's try not to get technical. I'm happy to talk
to get
more
to
about
the end, if something bad happened. If in fact lenders had to foreclose,
yes,
the city would be behind them, meaning essentially the city wouldn't really own the property. The city would kind of give up that right, and in order to keep that property, we would have to pay the folks in front of us to keep the property.
Yes, if you chose. To be clear, though, if the state were to foreclose on the property, they would still have obligations that to keep the property up and to rent the property, and it wouldn't go vacant. And I don't know if the state, through this CHAMP or CHFA program, have they ever foreclosed on a property you've been involved in?
I'm not aware of that. I mean, that's why you have the CHAMP program as a way to minimize that foreclosure type idea. But I want to be really clear.
I'm sorry, you got to come up to the microphone. The meeting's being recorded. And just identify yourself for the recording.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm Brad Scheid. I'm a private development consultant working with Renaissance. All I was saying is that CHFA underwrites this thing very conservatively. Their whole idea is that they're assuming foreclosure. I'm saying that in a way that the way lenders typically view deals. So, as Ryan said, I would assume you'd be in second position behind CHFA. CHFA would be the main lender here. They would be taking the risk of the construction loan and the permanent mortgage financing. In a case of a default or a foreclosure process, as Ryan said, they don't empty out the project. The way it would do is it'd be a loan workout, probably within the owner. That you would be a part of that as in a second position. You would obviously have all the notices, and that would be part of your negotiation with the first mortgage lender, that you would be a part of all that. So what I'm saying is, in a worst case scenario, it'd be a team, it'd be a party that you would all be working towards, not towards vacant property, but towards a workout of how this can continue on and the units they've installed. Of course, we hope for no foreclosure.
Just another question. Are there personal guarantees from any investors with the CHA?
I'm sorry, what? There's guarantees
From the investors?
From the developer. The developer will have to make a guarantee, and the investor will be also guaranteeing the project. There's basically three guarantees. You have a rent-up guarantee, which the developer, there'll be probably, if you notice, there was a reserve fund of about $480 grand. That was an estimate. That is a operating and marketing reserve. So the developer's on the hook for the marketing. It's on the hook for all the construction. So we have to do a construction completion. Of course, we'll have a performance and payment bond and a contract be fully bonded. But we also have a contingency to assume the worst case scenario. So it's mainly a rent-up guarantee and a construction guarantee. And then the investor and the developer obviously are guaranteeing those performances.
But those are guaranteed by the LLCs, not by the individuals, correct?
Right, they're not personal. No, I'm sorry. Please understand the question.
No, they're not personal. Can I just follow up on his response just about CHFA underwriting? I think it's an important piece of this equation to understand that CHFA underwriting is conservative for that very reason as well. So they try to underwrite these rents to less than what they think you could potentially get, so that they realize that there's some room to work with to make sure that you can get to where you want to get to. So it's a combination of their experience from an underwriting standpoint and conservative underwriting that typically prevents these things from going to work out.
And turn to this side of the table. Margaret? Kelly, go ahead.
There's been a lot of focus on the retail now, obviously. So can you talk about the letter of intent that you received over the past few years? I want to know specifically how recently you've been getting letters of intent specifically for the restaurant.
Sure. So we originally received about a year and a half ago about 20,000+ square feet of letters of intent. We continue to keep up with those folks, but a lot of those folks have changed where they are in life right now. But we continue to be new. As an example, we've been in discussions with a restaurant in the Middletown area that's thinking about potentially expanding to the Bristol area and coming into our market. So we're constantly updating that. We basically have determined through all that work and all the work we've done with 2 brokerage firms in the area over the past couple of months, 4 to 6 months, that for us to get anywhere further without having financing in place, at least, if not the ground broken, is really kind of pie in the sky. I don't know if people understand, but I'll just kind of give a little explanation. It will take 18 months to build this building. So if you're a retailer, okay, and you're looking to rent space, you are not going to likely commit 2.5 years beforehand to your space. So we worked really hard to get people excited about this project. We worked really hard to make sure that folks sign letters of intent. And we think a lot of them, as one of the comments in the, and I'm sorry you had to read that whole thing. We didn't intend for you to have to read that whole thing, just so you know. One of the comments in the 44 comments and voting for is actually somebody who's still interested in renting retail space. So there is interest. There is significant interest. Ultimately, the rents that they're going to be able to pay is the challenge. And if we could command $16, $17, $18 a foot rents in today's dollars, we would not be asking for this assistance, but we're not confident that we can command that today. We know how important this retail space is. We believe how important this retail space is. Unfortunately, even if our investors put in $3 million in private equity, we cannot get a construction loan on that. And the state money that loans money towards projects like this is for the housing portion of the project only. So we're kind of in a conundrum there, which is why we were proposing that the city invest in this retail space. But we were not proposing that the city manage the retail space. We were not proposing that the city rent the retail space. What we were proposing is that they invest in it and that the net operating income comes to the city after expenses are paid to people like a management company or a leasing agency to do all that work. And we were pretty conservative in our rents, even to where we've had discussions thus far. So that's a long answer. The short answer is we still have people interested, but we need to get financing in place, and likely we can't lock them up until shovels go in the ground.
And what about more recent letters of intent for the other spaces?
For the residential space? Or?
No, the other retail spaces.
We're happy to get additional letters of intent to prove that to the board if that's what they'd like to see.
Ryan, can you just...
But the discussions...
Not to interrupt, I think what Kelly's asking is how many have you gotten? Because at one point...
We haven't asked them for them. We've just been in discussions with them.
Right, but at one point a while ago, you came to the board and you had like 6 prospective retail tenants, and you gave us their names.
Sure.
And Kelly, I'm sorry, now I'm stepping on your toes, but I did it to them, so I'm going to do it to you. The letter that I read said that these people found out that you had 20 other culinary hopefuls on the list. Do you have 20 interested restaurants to go into this space?
I'm not going to say that person's... to be honest with you, I'm not even sure who that was that made that comment. You could reread the name and I probably know, but 20 has never been an accurate number as far as restaurants. I believe they may be referring to the 20 people we had on the LOI list. And I don't even think it was 20 people. I think it was 21,000 square feet of retail space, so I think they're just mixing the numbers up a little bit here.
Sorry, Kelly. No, that's fine. My final question was the 8% return. Where did that number come from?
It's a number that we believed was a fair return, but we're happy to have a discussion if the city is looking for more. Ultimately, our offer is that the city gets all income on retail, net income after expenses until they get paid back their money plus a return. It could come faster. We hope that will come faster. It could come slower. And we're hoping to be able to have a dialogue, and we're happy to have a conversation, but that was a fair return that we thought was not going to sink the possibility of the money coming back.
Can you explain what would happen if those retail spaces, we build them and we have nobody to come in? Can you explain that a little further, at least from my understanding?
Sure. Well, while we underwrote the rents very conservatively, there are cities all across this country that are building retail spaces or supporting retail spaces. In fact, this city's done it for quite some time through grant processes through the Economic Development Department that charge no rent, just to get retailers to come into their cities for a period of time. So what would happen is that if the city were to invest this money, and if the city were to bond that money, say $3.9 million was what we put out there, that would cost the average taxpayer in Bristol about $1.65 per year. So for $1.65 per year, you would have 21,000 square feet of retail space downtown that could be leased out at the city's discretion if there was a board involved to exciting companies or businesses that would want to come down here and start a career or a business or a dress shop or whatever, a restaurant here in Bristol. If you had to do that. We don't think you have to do that because for example, we underwrote the restaurant at $12 a foot. I know of restaurants that are paying $12 a foot in this area. I don't know restaurants paying much more than that though. So ultimately, I think if you had to go to $8 a foot, you would get a rental. So I'm very confident that you would not be leasing the space for free. However, if that was to happen, it would again cost the average taxpayer in Bristol $1.65 to have new retail space here in Bristol.
I'm sorry, Ryan, can you just explain how your calculation of $1.65 was derived? Because we heard the chair of the finance board say that $4 million was 1 mil. and 1 mil in annual property taxes to a homeowner is more than $1.65.
So that's the average taxpayer number, which is not just homeowners. We actually submitted last year in our $6 and $12 million bonding package in concert, in conference with the Assessor's Department and the Controller's Department. Numbers very similar to this for the $6 million and the $12 million bonding. But basically the way it's calculated is you take the full taxes, and then you take the burden of the additional money that you're bonding, and then you divide it out amongst all the taxpayers, which could be property taxes, it could be car taxes, it could be whatever it may be. So I'm happy to go over those calculations with you.
Could you?
Sure.
Now? Well, you said $1.65 for a taxpayer. That's a tiny number.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know how you did the calculation.
I don't have it right in front of me, so...
Well, that's
I'm pretty good at math.
That's a very small number.
Sure.
That really needs to be discussed, because I'm not sure how you did that calculation. I think you should. You have any idea how you did that calculation?
I can't remember the exact formula we used because it's in a big spreadsheet, but I'm happy to go over the formula. Sure.
Try to take a stab at it. Charlie Collins, representing Renaissance. I spent most of the afternoon with the city's controller and tax assessor, and basically the $3.9 million bond scenario, if that was the scenario that played out here, would be serviced by about $195,000 a year in principal payments and 2 interest payments of about $12,000 apiece. When you added up the principal and interest payments as the city would typically pay a bond back over the 20-year period, taking into account the property taxes that Renaissance pays on the parcel, you get a payback schedule that one is divided against the total number of tax accounts in the city of Bristol that comes out to the $1.65 number.
So it's $219,000
in the first year.
For the first year.
Yep. And that $195,000 principal number is a constant throughout the 20-year life of the loan, and the dual $12,000 interest payments decrease about $500 a year throughout the life.
And so you divided that by what number?
Whatever the number of total tax accounts in the city of Bristol was. I believe it was like 19,800 and something accounts we got from the assessor's office.
Okay, and that's per year?
Per year, yes, that's correct. So the $1.65 figure is actually an average over the life of a 20-year loan. In the earlier years, it's about $4, and as that interest payment decreases and the principal payments continue, it whittles down to under $1, but the average over the life of the loan is $1.65.
Okay, so that's just a $3.9 million loan without any other expenses for the property, and not obviously taking into consideration any other investment the city would make.
That's correct, and it doesn't take into account any that would not include any retail revenue. That would assume 100% vacancy. So if 3 of the 6 spaces were leased, that number would be obviously less.
Okay. Thanks.
I said I had a great team. Thank you very much.
Mr. DeMasio, Mr. Martin, too.
I just have a quick question, Ryan. In your proposal, you mentioned that Article 6 of the PDA is going to have to be amended, or, as you say, clarified. I'm not going to get into a lawyerly discussion as to whether it's really an amendment or a clarification. But presumably that's to address Mr. Olin's participation in the project, correct?
Correct.
And I assume, as you mentioned, he's going to be soliciting other investors for his $3.1 million.
Correct.
And so he's going to spin off another LLC that's going to be the LLC that will actually hold that interest in the project, correct?
Likely, I should say.
I mean, it's not 100% sure because you guys haven't negotiated the agreement.
Yeah.
Right? But as part of that, is Mr. Olin seeking an option or right of first refusal on any subsequent phases of the project that the city would have to agree to if they went forward with his financing?
We've talked about Mr. Olin's PAD participation in future phases. It would likely be a much smaller participation than in this phase, obviously. But he's interested in the rest of the project as well. So yes, that's possible.
But if you know, I mean, is that a condition right now of his investment? Is that right now a condition of his investment? That he have that option?
It's not a condition that's on the table right now, no.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Martin?
Thank you. Ryan, after reviewing the documents that you submitted last week, I just got one quick question. So what's the value of the building once it's completed, constructed, and you're leased up? What's the value of the building going to be?
Okay, so I explained last meeting that you can't really derive the exact value of the building because it's a affordably restricted building. So in a market rate building, you would do a cap rate on your net or operating income, and that would give you a valuation for a reversion or the sale of the building. But we're in I guess you could do it, but you don't normally do that because we're in an income restricted building for 37% of the units. I could take a guess at it for you. It will be less than the construction costs, so if or the total development costs, I should say. So if the total development costs are $23 million, it will be less than probably $18-19 million.
In your conversation, you said you met with the assessor today and the comptroller?
I believe Charlie did, yeah.
What values were discussed at that meeting for the building? I'm sure Tom DeNoe probably had the conversation with you.
We were only discussing the values in terms of the first year, which in terms of the tax liability in the first year, the total value was not discussed today. I can certainly get you a figure, but I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 or 18 million was the number that we were working with today.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is that value. I'm trying to figure out how much in tax revenue the city would be losing through these, the next 21 years or 20 years.
So,
because I think you're promising $1.1 million thereabouts over a 20-year period with the plan that you submitted in here.
Yes.
And I know again, I didn't have what that value would be, so it's kind of hard to figure out where the potential tax revenue that the city is likely to lose here.
Sure. So the assessor hasn't had the opportunity, or we haven't had the opportunity to spend time with the assessor to come up with what the full tax number would be. But I know that units in Bristol have been getting somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a unit a year in taxes as a full taxes. So that would be $100,000 to $200,000 a year.
Ryan or Mark, how much vacant space, retail space, do we have in the downtown area of Bristol right now, existing property?
We had done a study, I guess 6 months ago or so. We had looked at, and I thought there was over 10,000 square feet of vacant space within a couple block radius.
About a
quarter mile radius. It has changed since then, but that was our last site.
And is it designed so that you can pull the retail portion out of the building that you're designing right now?
It's not, and it's not allowable under the zoning.
Right.
Building A, which was part of a proposal last year, could be built with no retail space. Well, I shouldn't say no, about 1,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet of retail space. And would be able to be 95% financed without city help, or 90% financed without city help.
Well, just to be clear, sorry, Building A still required the city to pay for the infrastructure for the piazza, the roads. You're talking about the $3.1 million you're seeking from the city on top of the infrastructure money.
No, I'm saying the infrastructure number would go down as well.
Okay.
Okay. Ryan, I just asked the question of what value the building would be once completed and occupied. And you you said, you know, it's not going to be the 19 million, it'll be less than that. I heard 17. And I just did some quick math here, 15 million at the 70% for the assessed value at times the mill rate. And I thought I heard you guys say $100,000 for the annual tax, or $1,000 a unit.
Between 1,000 and 2,000.
So you have 100 units, that's $100,000. My math comes out to $363,000. Am I missing something?
Per unit?
Well, you've got the value of $15 million, and I took your number 19, you guys said 17, I said, well, let me use 15. And the assessed value, 70%, times the mill rate is $363,000. Am I missing something? So that's like more like $3,000 a unit, not $1,000 a unit.
So my understanding from the assessor was that 2,000, 2,200 would be a high range for that. So I don't, you know, I'm just taking what I discussed with the assessor quite some time ago.
Thank you.
We could rerun the numbers, though. We're happy to do that. I think the important point is that the parcel is getting 0 taxes today and has been for 20 years. So any taxes is positive. In fact, I think the parcel is actually costing the taxpayer money as we speak right now.
Any additional questions for Ryan, Barbara, Kelly, Amy, John, Joe, Tom, Henry? Okay, does any board member have an interest in going into executive session to hear from Mr. Owens?
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the financial end of this project.
Who do you want to invite into that session?
BDDC board, Mr. Ryan's team,
Our attorney, Mr. Devasio?
attorney.
The city's attorney, the other Mark Bowen?
Yes.
Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? We're going to go into a brief executive session.
My fingers crossed.
Okay, can I have a motion to reconvene our public session?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to reconvene our public session, please.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? We are back in public session. In order to facilitate...
Madam Chairwoman, if I can, we typically also note for the record that no votes were taken in executive session.
That is correct, no votes were taken. Thank you, Mr. Devasio. In order to entertain a discussion on financing, development, and leasing plan and to take any necessary action, I need to have a motion put on the table.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for purpose of open discussion.
Second. What is the motion? On a recommendation.
Recommendation on the BDDC plan of Renaissance to either move it forward or disregard.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Let's have some discussion. Joe, you want to go first again?
Not really.
Okay, you don't have to.
Just a little unsure of the motion that John made.
For discussion.
It's a motion to open a discussion on the plan.
Then you have to go through.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, sorry. All right, discussion is open.
I think it's clear from our discussions at this point that at least I'm uncomfortable with the fact that there's a lot of information that we're still lacking in terms of who was going to be invested investing the money, and where that's going to come from, what the ownership is going to be, and how that's going to proceed forward, given the contract that we already have with you guys, with Renaissance.
And Tom, just to take that a step further, I mean, a few of us have been on this for quite a few years, and I know we all want this to move forward in a positive mode. But it's just, for me personally, there's a lot of unanswered questions that I don't have right now. I wish I did have them, but I don't.
Maybe I'll set, at least for myself, a little bit of tone here. This board has put in an awful lot of time and an awful lot of effort into this project. Some of the original members, including John, have put countless hours into this. And the reason we do it is not for the great pay or the accolades and praises that we see on the front page of the Bristol Press every day, but because we really care about what happens to that property across the street. And I would commend everybody that spoke on both sides, because it's obvious that you all care what happens to that property across the street and what gets built and the future of our city. And we struggled. This is not an easy task. And I don't think there are very many of you out there that would necessarily want to sit in any one of these chairs. I'm a contract person. Ryan, you know that from day one, because I sat at the negotiating table as the appointed rep of the BDDC to negotiate the contract. So after receiving your submission, I went back to the contract, and I'm going to be completely honest, I was disappointed in the submission. I mean, I was expecting a finance plan, a finance development and leasing plan. In my professional life, I've seen lots of them. Yours was really very skinny. Now, I understand that you haven't necessarily had a lot to work with. We had economy issues, we had a lot of issues, and this board has worked hand in hand with you. But some of these unanswered questions, when we talked about the finance development and leasing plan, it was supposed to be shovel-ready. This is not a shovel-ready project. There are a lot of unanswered questions. We also, when we talked about the extension, and when we did the extension, the idea was that everything was going to be in place with the exception of the CHAMP financing. So the CHAMP application was going to have to be done. We still have unnamed investors. We still don't exactly know what the ownership percentages are going to be, what the structure is going to be, who the party sitting across the table from the city is going to be. That puts this board in what I believe is an awkward position in recommending a plan to the council, and a plan that doesn't specify who the controlling party across the table for this phase of the project is going to be, how the funds are going to flow, who all of the investors are. And again, also doesn't comport with what I think we always talk about as a finance development and leasing plan. And development and leasing don't really appear in the plan. I mean, the leasing plan is, okay, city, you're taking the commercial. We don't have, current numbers of letters of intent. We don't have updated numbers of people that want to live there. We don't have a tenant list. Obviously, we understand, we believe what you say about pre-leasing, but it seems that those efforts, all of the efforts have been focused on financing, and it doesn't seem like there have been, and I'm not saying you don't work hard because I know how hard you work, but it seems like there hasn't been enough put into the development and leasing side of things, and even the financials, for me, just haven't come together.
I think along the same lines as Jennifer was talking, I think that it's important that we all understand this is not a commitment for next month. This is a commitment for 20 years or for 30 years. Obviously, the city is being asked to fund a large portion of the project. But beyond that, we also have to live with the project for a long time. We have to be comfortable with the sponsors of the project, with the specifics of the project. We need to be really comfortable with this plan to make sure it's the right thing for the city. I think that it's clear there are lots of passionate people who want something to happen in the city. I think we all do. I think we need to be very careful and make sure that the plan that is put forward, we're all very comfortable with, we can live with for a long period of time. And Jennifer said that there were some unanswered, several of the members here said there were some unanswered questions, that the plan seemed a little bit light with the detail, and I also believe that's the case. So at this point, I just wanted to make that statement.
I think that a mixed-use project is a possibility for Bristol, and I do think it's a path we should explore. However, I also am comfortable on who's investing what, where the money's coming from, the ownership. This is a risk project. This is a risky project, whatever way we look at it. But that's what concerns me is the ownership, the investing, and frankly, the experience of the potential investors is a concern of mine.
I was very encouraged today listening to all of our community come out and speak about our downtown on the positive and the honesty. And what was encouraging to me is that our community cares for what's happening in our town. We have had a packed room every single time we've had discussions regarding this project. We are all in agreement. We need something downtown. We like the project of a mixed-use area where our community can get together and come and meet and share. But I don't want the city or taxpayers to be put in an awkward position financially for the next 30 years, because it just doesn't affect us today. It affects myself, it affects my children, it affects my grandchildren, it affects a long line. So what the decisions that we have to look at and the decisions that we have to make isn't about today, it's for the next 20, 30, 50 years.
I think I'll just add to my earlier comments, and I'll put it on the record now. I think that the city is going to have to put some kind of investment into the downtown. I don't think that we can expect to redevelop downtown with zero city contribution. But because there's got to be, and I'm not saying what level it should be, I have no idea, but clearly I'm a huge supporter of mixed-use development, would love to see mixed-use development, but to back a city investment, it's got to be a rock-solid plan. The details have all got to be there. We all have to know what we're jumping into, and I just feel that we can't commit at this point, even on a soft commitment that's going to have to convert very quickly to a hard commitment in order to meet the state financing commitments. The information just isn't there.
To add to Jen's comments, I also agree that mixed use is something we need downtown, and also I'm a firm believer, even though the city already purchased the property, $5 million, there's money that's going to have to be invested through the city.
Anyone want to make any additional comments?
Yes. For those of you who are counting like me, the supporters definitely outweigh those who are against the project, and I happen to agree that I support the project for mixed-use development, but I do have questions as well, and I was hoping that they would get answered before the June 10th deadline, maybe in the working group. I'm not sure if that's possible, but I do hope that that's something that we can look towards in negotiations. But I have questions, and I don't think all of them were answered for tonight.
Any further comments? Mr. Martin, do you want to make any comments? Mr. Ignacio? Okay, if there are no further comments, the chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to deny this project moving forward to approve for approval to City Council.
Sir, I think what the PDA calls for is that the BDDC either has to make a recommendation that the City Council approve the proposed financing, leasing, and development plan, or reject the proposed financing, leasing, and development plan. So I think the motion you're struggling to articulate would be to make a motion that the City Council approve the proposed financing, leasing, and development plan.
That we make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation that the City Council approve the proposed financing, leasing, and development
BDDC make a motion to approve the financial, recommend approval of the finance and development plan.
And can I hear a second?
Second.
So a motion has been made that the BDDC recommend the City Council approve the plan submitted. So a yes vote would be a yes to approve the plan, and a no vote would be a vote that the plan, a recommendation of the plan not to be approved. And with that, I will call a roll call. Mr. Lonvico.
No.
Mr. Farina.
No.
Mr. Barnes.
No.
Ms. Greaves.
No.
Ms. Marr.
No.
Ms. Fontaine.
No.
And the chair votes no. With that, we have no further business to come before the board tonight. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.